when you do like the superhero landing, where you come down and land really hard, I know there's digital effects there, but what do you have to do in that shot to make it look like it's really you landing like that? How do they film that?
Essentially, if I can just get 30 or 40 feet in the air and just jump off a cherry picker or something, and just see how much my knees can take, and then they film that, and if my knees don't explode, then they move on.
No, but seriously though.
Seriously. You're like, no, but seriously.
No, yeah, how do you really do that though?
Essentially, you just start on your tiptoes, and then you drop as quickly as you can into what you would imagine a, pressure-taking landing would be.
Oh, it's amazing.
It's pretty simple. You get used to it, and then you start playing around with it and start twisting and stuff, and depending on how you're landing or where you're landing, it all changes.
When I last talked to you from Man of Steel, which was fascinating to me, you're telling me how they did the flying scenes and how ridiculous they look. Did that change at all for Batman? Because they looked amazing in Man of Steel, but did the process change? Is it the same thing?
It changed very much so. We did less actual belly pan flying stuff, so less the uncomfortable stuff, and a lot of the stuff became CGI. Because we had less of it as well, and less of the camera work of me flying and my reactions and everything. So it became more CGI. There was some stuff, but we left the belly pan out for most of it, I think. I don't remember using it that much anyway, and a lot of it was wires. Wires are easier than lying in that pan.
Now, obviously, right now we're prepping for Justice League, which I cannot wait to see this.
Yes,
and
indeed.
I'm wondering, is there a special preparation you do before you go into making another movie? So, for example, obviously you left Man of Steel, you made some other films, you came back, you made this. Now that you're going on Justice League, do you prep a certain way to go into Justice League differently than you did for Man of Steel or Batman vs Superman?
Yeah, essentially, because of experience, I find a little box, and I put a keypad on it, and I make sure it's entirely safe. And then I put my sanity in there, and I just lock it away for a little bit.
Right.
And then I make sure I can find it after the fact.
Right. I want to ask you, because obviously this character is so complicated. There's a lot going on with him. I don't want to give anything away, obviously, but when you leave a project like this, what's something you learned about yourself as a person and as an actor that you didn't know going in before?
Okay, one thing I've learned about me in particular, is how much I genuinely love Superman and the character. I've become quite protective of him in sometimes quite aggressive ways. And I want to make sure this guy is represented properly. And I didn't realize that was in me. I knew I had it for my family and my friends, and my dog. But when it comes down to a character or a role, I always had a sense of a relationship, like with Charles Brown and the Tudors. I had a closeness to the character, but never quite like this. Like this I protect like a mother hen protects her chicks. It's kind of crazy sometimes.
When I interviewed you for Man of Steel, you told me such an interesting story about something you not Man of Steel, Man from U.N.C.L.E. that you built into the character that wasn't in the script. It was like something you built into yourself to make. Yeah. So I'm wondering, is there something you've built into Superman that was never written in the comics that you did for yourself so you can get into the character more?
That's a very good question. There are little things here and there which I add in the moment, but I'm very particular about being loyal to the comic books. Once we've finished developing this character, as we have over this movie and the previous movie, we're still not at finished product Superman. When we get there, then I can start adding my own little nuances to make the character, this version of the character, mine in particular, while still remaining absolutely true to the source material.
It's so good to see you, man.
You're
awesome, man. Congratulations to you, buddy. You're awesome, man. You seriously. When you say the line, "Tell me, do you bleed? You will." Obviously, it's in the Batman voice, but how do you say it on set? Do you say it in your normal voice and then they digitally render it? How do you do it?
Yeah, the performance is done because the idea behind this conceit of Batman is that because he's this public face, Bruce Wayne, billionaire philanthropist, kind of well-known, we can think of other well-known billionaires who people might recognize, and that he uses the cowl has a voice modulator in it that disguises his voice, because otherwise people would go like, that guy sounds a lot like Bruce Wayne. And so what we did was I performed it, and then we could fool with how it would sound using the computers later to make it adjust it and make it sound
So how does it sound when you say
disguised.
"Tell me, do you bleed"? How does it sound when you say it?
It sounded like I said, "Tell me, do you bleed?"
That's awesome.
And then the computer makes it sound way cooler.
So cool. Now the eyes were blowing my mind. I just saw the costume over there. Now were those digital or practical? Or could you see through them? How did that look when you were shooting?
Yeah,
that?
I could see through. You had to be able to see. Couldn't do anything. I mean, trying to do in the fight choreography or something without being able to see through the eyes would have been challenging. You can see through the eyes. It was not great vision because it kind of comes forward over your eyes, so it's a little more tunnel vision. But you can see and you can move around, and with the metallic suit, the mech suit, the armored suit, you get drilled into that, and that's a little more restrictive, and kind of you feel a little bit like the Tin Man. But the regular suit is pretty flexible. You can move around in that. You can do stunts. You can do stuff. They did a great job.
Now, obviously, you look back at the Adam West Batman. Totally different from what you have here. It still holds on to some of the values, but it's a lot darker, obviously. If you could see those two Batmans talk, like, well, I mean, obviously different generations, different time periods, what do you think they would talk about?
I don't know. I actually watched the Adam West Batmans a fair bit because my son is really into them, and he likes watching them. So I've been like watching a lot of these episodes, and they did a full-length movie, and I watched that recently, and it's. I don't know what they talk about. It's very different eras, but there is something that still remains the same about this character since its inception in the 30s. You know, this idea of a guy who's has this secret identity that he fights crime at night, and nobody knows about it, and he takes on the burdens of the city. That allure seems to have endured with this character.
The scene that geeked me out the most was in the warehouse scene, and you come up through the ground, and you're fighting those guys. When you throw that guy's face into the...
That was amazing.
How did that
Those
work?
stunt guys just like, I mean, it wasn't into a board, but it was like you got thrown down. You know what I mean? Those guys just... you tip my hat. I mean, these movies get made because a lot of stunt guys work really hard and like will take some hits. And sometimes there's no way to fake it. You just get knocked down really hard.
Yeah.
I mean, especially if you're the stunt guy. And there's some guys who really took some big shots to make it look cool. And we owe them a big debt.
When you play a character like this, obviously, who is such an incredible character on screen, when you walk away from it, what's something you learned about yourself as a person and as an actor?
Well, as an actor, one of the things I learned was to let the director play the Batman part. Let the director create that with costume, with sound design, with production design, with all the tricks that you have at your disposal as a director. He created this kind of the whole experience of what it's like to see Batman on screen, and not to push and try to sell that anymore, but to just sort of let it be. And that's a good lesson, I think, sometimes as an actor, is like just let the movie do some of the storytelling for you and don't feel like you have to be out in front of it all the time.
I read you shot 16, 35, 65 millimeter film, but also Alexa and GoPro.
And IMAX.
That's amazing. So talk about the different formats, why you chose those different formats, for what scenes did you choose them for?
The basic format of the entire movie was just anamorphic 35 millimeter. That was like 99% of the movie. Not even 99, less now because there's so much. And then the next biggest format was IMAX. And then what we did was we were going to shoot, we shot 2 of the dialogue sequences in normal 65 mil, like 70 mil with 70 mil sound cameras, because IMAX cameras are so noisy. I didn't want to shoot, because I knew I was going to blow them up to IMAX, but I was like, I don't want to loop both these scenes, so let's just shoot with the 65 millimeter camera. But on the one day that it was so cold, the IMAX camera went down, so then we had to the 70 millimeter camera went down, sorry, so we had to shoot it with the IMAX camera anyway. So it was stuff like that. And then I think we stuck a GoPro on the Batmobile and then ended up using the shot. It was like there's one GoPro shot in the movie.
That's amazing. My favorite moments in the movie are when it actually jumps to the IMAX. I'm a big fan of, because Nolan did that on Dark Knight and Dark Knight. It's amazing to see that. Can you talk about the choice, why those scenes? Like, obviously the main fight you want in full IMAX. So
I mean, I feel like, the opening of the movie is all IMAX, the title sequence, and I did that because I wanted to like just, I'm a fan of like and into the beginnings of the openings of movies being really particular, because I think the hook is important to get to get you all in. Like by the end of the title sequence, you should be going like, okay, whatever, like just let's do this thing. Yeah. And so that was the why of that. Then there's the dream sequence,
which is all one shot fight.
Yeah.
I literally had nerd tears streaming down my face. It was like one shot. It was the most incredible thing I've ever seen.
Yeah. So that was all IMAX too, which makes it even harder, because the cameras, we had all the sets had to like blow apart, and like because like the camera starts inside the back of the truck, so the camera's on a crane inside the truck. It actually turns like this, if you notice, and then this side of the truck, as the crane goes, kind of, you can't see it off camera, it's kind of peeling back as it's built to like come apart, so the whole truck comes apart. and then like as we go around, we have to restore the truck. And anyway, then there's one stitch about right there that we had to, it's because we could reset.
I'm looking at Watchmen. Watchmen's a very soundtrack-driven film. Man of Steel and this film are very score-driven films.
Yeah.
And you obviously have Junkie XL and Zimmer here, which are amazing. Can you talk about the difference in working in soundtrack versus score and how that changes as a director?
Yeah, it's interesting because I think for me, working with soundtracks, you get to pre-visualize the movie in a more sort of complete way. Because you have that, like when you're when I draw the storyboards myself, and so when I'm drawing, I have like my, I have my mix, my drawing mix. Like on Watchmen, it was basically all the songs that are in the movie. So I just listen to them over and over and draw and listen, and so you really get a sense. Times they are changing. You're like, well, listen. While I'm drawing the title sequence, I'm just listen to it. With this, I tended to now my drawing mix, like for drawing Justice League. Drawing Justice League right now because we're getting ready to shoot. So while I'm drawing it, I'm like, I have a couple tracks from Man of Steel. I have a couple stolen tracks from this movie, just on that I've taken from Hans, and so I have, created a sort of a weird soundtrack in a fake soundtrack for Justice League, and that's kind of the same process I did for this, but it's different because you don't have that kind of. I tend to put songs on anyway that like kind of get me in the mood.
I have to ask you this. It's in the trailer, so it's not a spoiler. But when you block Doomsday's lasers with the shield, how does that look on set? How are you going back? It's like how did they do that?
Wow, it was shot in different parts. Lots of wind machines, lots of them, and I was wired. We had to do a wire gig. So I was pulled back with the wires, and it was super intensive because the wind was super strong. So it literally, you need to fight against the wind, and being pulled back. It was just fun.
It was awesome.
It's like going to the amusement park. It's amazing.
When we see the shots of you like jumping up, I mean this is in the trailer as well, and we hear you like doing the awesome scream that you do. Like, is that something you have to do in like a studio? Like, do you have to go in there and just do screams all day? Like, do they bring you in for like ADR screams? Like, how do they do that?
You do them both. You do it on set and you do it in the ADR room.
That's awesome. That's so cool.
It's crazy, yeah.
And you've obviously been in action films before, and I love you in the Fast and Furious franchise. And I'm
Thank
wondering
you.
the difference in shooting there with someone like a Justin Lin, who's a phenomenal filmmaker, and then moving on to Zack Snyder. Do you utilize anything from the Fast sets here?
To be honest, not really. Fast and Furious was such an amazing experience for me, and I really, really enjoyed working with this family because that's how it feels. They're literally like family. But I feel like this movie is different. The agenda is different. Yes, it has the same volume. Both of them are huge. Both, Batman versus Superman and the Fast and Furious franchise is huge. But in this movie, it feels like the agenda was different. It was good against evil and so many different values. And Zack Snyder had such a clear vision on what he wanted to get and the way he wanted to get it. And it's been a blast. I really, really enjoyed working on this movie. It's amazing.
Now, we know Wonder Woman from the comics. We've seen her on screen before, but I'm wondering, what is something that you added into her that was not in the script or the comic books or anything? Something that you added to become her by yourself?
Well, you bring yourself to every role.
Right.
But at the end of the day, for me, it was important that she's not going to be too goody two-shoes. I wanted her to have this spice, to be feisty, to be set like the smirk.
Yeah.
After Doomsday hit me, and I'm like, you're messing with me. All right. So I wanted her to have this attitude, this cool attitude.
Well, you did an amazing job. Thank you so
so
much for the interview. Congratulations
Thank
to
you.
you.
That was a fun interview.
All right, so you have a great line in the film where you talk about the oldest lie in America is that power can be innocent. And I think it's a fascinating line. I'm wondering what that line means to you personally and means to you as an actor and also specifically to the character as well.
Yeah, I mean, my character is a powerful guy and he knows that he has some kind of like dark insecurities and deep desires for bad things. And he looks at Superman and sees that Superman can destroy a city single-handedly, and so my character looks at Superman as a kind of like a nuclear weapon on the loose, and so he says like, he cannot be all good. If he is all good, then he wouldn't have destroyed that city. If he is all good, then he won't be a threat to all of humanity, so we have to destroy him.
Obviously, the Red Capes are coming line is great because it was in the trailers. Everyone's now. When you get into that mindset to kind of sound that, I guess, quote unquote, psychotic when you're saying it, but like, is it hard to go there? Like where are you? Do you fully become Lex as you're saying that, or do you still have part of yourself there? Like, I'm wondering how you go there as an actor.
I try to think of all the feelings I have that are similar to him. Like, so I obviously don't want to kill anybody, but I do understand what it's like to feel envious. I do understand what it's like to kind of want more power and not be able to get it. I do understand what it's like to feel like there is somebody out there who unjustly has power. So I try to like explore those feelings in myself, think about people in my past who I felt that towards or who I think are similar, and then try to use those feelings, and then it will look like I'm thinking about killing Superman, even though I'm just thinking about like I really gotta call my dad back because I feel envious that he, is something, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that kind of stuff. So it works. I guess they call that like sense memory. You remember like a time or a feeling that you have that you can attribute to that moment in the movie.
You know, it's interesting to me. You mentioned your dad. You mentioned your family. I'm wondering, when you make a movie this secretive, can you tell them what you're doing? Can you tell them that I'm doing this. This is what happened today. We shot this scene. Can you not even talk to your family about it?
Yeah, my father is the only person who would really be interested in it. Like, my friends are not comic book guys, but my dad loves Superman. My dad stood online to see Man of Steel with his biker friends for 2 hours or whatever. So, like, he was the only one I had to kind of hide stuff from, because I could tell my mom and she wouldn't understand. You know, she doesn't understand what Lex Luthor's trying to do. So I could kind of tell my mom about my day and she wouldn't pry into like looking for information, you know. My dad probably would. So so that was part of it, is that I'm not really surrounded by people who are that interested in like the secrets of the movie. And then also I didn't grow up like reading the comic books, so I was not like eager to share all these crazy things that I knew we were doing in the movie.
Now, I've interviewed actors before who've played quote unquote villains in movies, and they say that, you know, I have to justify what he's doing in order to get into the role. So do you personally have to kind of go there? Like, do you have to justify him to yourself? Like, okay, this is kind of what you said earlier in the answer, but is that where you have to go?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think like Lex Luthor makes a really compelling argument that Superman should be destroyed. I think like if you look at the movie from his perspective, you would say, yeah, I mean, he's going about doing what he's doing in a horrible way, and he's clearly a bad, not good, not nice person, but what he's doing, there is some credibility to his argument that Superman should not exist, that kind of person with that kind of power shouldn't be allowed to roam free.
I'm wondering, as you're sitting here today, is part of him still with you whatsoever? Like, do you leave him completely? Do characters ever stay with you, like Zuckerberg? Like, are any of them with you at all?
I write plays that I act in, and the character, like in my last play, was a really dark, bad person, and you do it every night, so you kind of learn how to, you do like 9 shows a week, so you learn how to like be able to like have somewhat of a day before the show and then kind of turn it on and off. And that's the trick that I've gotten to learn with experience, is how to kind of like be sad or angry, whatever it is, and be able to like not have to always feel that way. It's not always the easiest thing. That's why I kind of like playing characters that are happy. Those are harder to come by because they're not usually as interesting of a role. A guy who's just kind of happy is not that fun. I mean, it's not that interesting of a character, but it's much more enjoyable to play.
In Man of Steel specifically, and obviously in this movie, when you're flying with Superman, how do those scenes look on set? Like, is it a big green screen? Is it like
big green screen?
What does it look like when you shoot it?
Like a lot of rope and big wind machines, and usually Henry and I dangling very strangely close to each other for long periods of time. We're just kind of hanging out, so you kind of get to know somebody, while you're hanging inches from them.
I'm wondering, what nerds you out in real life? Like what do you geek out about in your daily life, besides movies?
Kind of depends. I like Broncos a little bit, like the Broncos. I'm from Colorado, so I kind of geeked out at the Super Bowl pretty bad. Like, I think I annoyed like everyone around me.
Did you go to the game?
I did, yeah.
You were in San Francisco?
I was in San Francisco. My brothers are big fans as well, so I got to bring them.
What's something you learned about yourself as a person and as an actress as you finished this movie versus Man of Steel?
It was such a different experience. I mean, we were shooting in Detroit, and which was awesome. But I think I just felt a lot more grounded as a woman when I finished this film. I was still sort of, when we did the first one, all of us were we wanted to get it right. We cared so much what the fans thought and everything like that. And now, like, we trust that they are going to come and watch this amazing thing that everyone has put together. And I think I'm just more relaxed, and I really am excited. I'm just excited to be a part of it, It's like all the worry is gone, and I still have all the hope that people love it, but I'm just excited about the movie.
The Matrix is a big deal for
Life
me.
changer for you.
I mean, it was one of those movies that just you remember. I remember where I was,
Right
who
on.
I was with,
Right.
what my reaction was.
How old were you?
It was 99, so I was 15,
Wow.
14. Yeah.
Wow. Cool.
Amazing. Give him
Cool.
2 shot.
Great
Kevin,
suit, by
Thank
the
you very
way.
much.
Really,
You
really
look amazing.
nice, bro.
I like that shirt.
Thank you.
That's
It's my-
awesome.
It's my painted on muscles. My painted on superhero muscles.
Pretty epic. Your character has some great moments in the movie where he kind of he makes up news headlines.
Sure, yeah.
So I'm wondering if there was a headline about your career to write one headline. What would you want to say?
Can I come back to it?
Sure.
Give me some time to think on it.
Okay.
Okay.
I want one of them by the end of the
Okay,
interview. I have to
okay.
know. Obviously, you've made so many great films in your career. And I was mentioning The Matrix to you.
Yeah.
How has filmmaking and special effects changed since you made that film with the Wachowskis to
Right.
now?
Well, the thing that's great about The Matrix is that it was the first movie to deliver on what comic books promised, technically speaking. We did things in that movie technically that hadn't been done before and that people continue to imitate ever since. The technology has gotten better, so some of the things that we did in that movie practically that were harder to do are easier to do, but they're not easy, if that makes any sense.
That makes perfect sense.
So, the Wachowskis really changed the game. And we were lucky to be a part of that. And, every filmmaker that's come after with a comic book, with a movie that's based in the comic book world, has to take a page from The Matrix.
Interesting. All right, so back to that question about the headline, Laurence Fishburne's career.
Laurence Fishburne's career. Laurence Fishburne's career, unstoppably watchable.
I love it. Daily Planet. Get this done immediately.
Cool.
One of the things I love about this movie is just the emotional quality, the relationship you have with Clark Kent, obviously, and Superman. And I'm wondering, as a mom, do you bring things from your real life mother elements into the character, and vice versa?
Yes, I think it's the best part of me and my favorite part of myself, and the best thing I ever did with my time on planet Earth was to be devoting it to a young person's experience. You'd be their tour guide and try to apologize for the world they're born into and explain it to them as they grow up and go, why is the world this way? And I'm like, well, you'll need some time to understand human nature. And that's very much the case with anyone you're helping to be a tour guide of the world to,
Now, you've made so many great films in your career, and obviously Zack Snyder is a genius. I mean, I love Man of Steel.
Clearly.
I love this film. He really is an amazing filmmaker. But looking at the movies you've made in the past, Unfaithful, anything you've made, are there things you've taken from those directors that you still utilize on a set like this, even though it's a massive production?
Oh yeah, I learned something. I hope I learn something every day. I can't keep track of all the things I've learned because it's like a grain of sand at a time, slowly building a beach, and then you die. It's just not a nice joke. but that's the joke of life. It's sort of like,
Right.
where does it accumulate? What points really matter? That's why I say motherhood is very rewarding, because it was just the coolest. And now she's an adult, and I get to marvel at what she does and be her cheerleader. So I brought that to my work, and I brought it from my work. I come home and I had a shirt that had the S on it anyway. And actually, no, it was my daughter. She made this shirt for me. What am I saying? She must have been about 10 years old, and it said Super Mom, and she had it made at some, like a spray paint.
Really?
thing. Yeah.
Do you still have it?
Oh, yeah. I wore it to the premiere. Well, it wasn't the premiere. It was the casting crew screening of the first Man of Steel.
That's
I was
amazing.
like, that's right. That's right. It's for real. My daughter really made this
I'm
for the real me. I really am. I was just having jokes.